Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see so many faces on the call. I see we're up to 77, which is great. We have another exciting program for you today. So let me formally welcome you to the March 7, 2022 Zones 33 and 34 and more Zoomformation call. I'm going to start with a few announcements before we get to the substance of our call today. The first relates to Ukraine. Ukraine is top of mind for all of us. There's a lot happening around the Rotary world, but I'm going to defer that discussion until Barry has a chance to talk, because the trustees have been very actively involved in coming up with some tremendous support possibilities for that part of the world. So if you agree, we'll defer discussion of that matter until later in the call when Barry has a chance to report. Just want to do another plug for the Houston Convention. It's on, it's in person, it's going to be great. It's not too late to sign up. It's not too late to sign up for the Southland reception. We have already exceeded the minimum number that we need to break even. We're into positive profit territory, which is always a good situation for the RI director to be in, because I was the one that had to sign the contract to confirm that we would have this event. So please still sign up for the Houston Convention. We would like to think that the COVID issues are slowly dissipating, and Houston is going to be fantastic. Council legislation is coming up next month, very close. We've had one town hall meeting. Stephanie Etchick and I co-hosted a town hall meeting last weekend. Stephanie is the trainer for COL for our two zones. And we have two more town hall meetings coming up, March the 13th and the 27th. The March the 27th is a new date. They're Sundays, and the call is at 7 o'clock. Please, for the COL reps in particular, you're welcome to join in. Even if you were on the call last week, come back again for a double dose or a triple dose, and anybody else is welcome to join as well. And I would ask the COL reps who are on the call today, please start reaching out to your district leadership and talking about the enactments. We need to have the reps as fully informed as we can. There are some quite tough enactments to get through. And the more you can talk and get guidance from your current district leadership, the more informed you will be, and the better the quality of the discussion will be in Chicago. So please make a point of reaching out and talking to your reps, and consider joining Stephanie and myself for one of the town hall meetings that are coming up. So now we have two special announcements. I'm going to ask past District Governor Clenice Platt to give us an update on her initiative, Are You Being Served? Are you there, Clenice?
I am here, Peter. Good afternoon, everybody. What a pleasure to see all of you all. I wanted to provide you all with a little bit of information about the You've Been Served project that we're doing, which is so exciting. It's 60 days of random acts of service and kindness from Pennsylvania to the Caribbean. And we actually have a website that people can visit, www.rotaryserves.org, and I'll put that in the chat box when I'm done. But what we're asking is for the clubs from Pennsylvania to the Caribbean to think about ways that you can impact your community, and think about ways that you can make sure that your committee, that your club members or you as an individual or others can do random acts of service. And when you do that, we're asking you to go on the website, put in your scheduled activities, or submit an event. You can do that before or afterwards. And when you do that, actually, it's wonderful. When you are submitting that information, you can put in pictures. You can also, it also allows us to keep a number of what people are doing. People from all over the districts have already participated, which is great. But I was looking at the calendar for March and April, and we want some folks to put things in there, which is great. On the website as well is the Director Peter's letter for You've Been Served in English, Spanish, and in French. There's social media posts that you can actually use with the You've Been Served logo. The transparent logo is there, the Canva business cards. Some of you all actually contacted me personally, and I wanted you all to know that those business cards are up there that says You've Been Served. What an awesome opportunity for us to come together and really make a difference in what we're doing in the world, and to really solidify our, Rotary's motto, service above self. And this is an opportunity for us to take that to the next level. The hashtags are Rotary, hashtag Rotary serves, and hashtag You've Been Served. So I'm super excited, and anything that I can do or any questions that you all have, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. We look forward to making a major difference in our communities during this time of 60 days from February 23rd, which was Rotary's anniversary, to April 23rd, which is the week of Paul Harris's birthday. So we are making a difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clanice. I love your passion, your excitement, your exuberance, your enthusiasm. This is a great initiative, and I commend you. And I commend everybody to give it your full support. So now we have another also exciting initiative, empowering girls, and none other than Past District Governor Dawn Rochelle. Dawn, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm still learning how to unmute. What in the world? But anyway, thank you so much. And following the energy of Clanice, we want to just point you to your email and to Facebook and all of the things that our Zone 34 public image team has been so amazing to help us in letting you know of this opportunity. This is going to be the second webinar in a series of 3, and it's going to be March 24th from 8 a.m. to 9:30. The information is on your screen. You can also go to the link that Marshall has already posted in the chat, rotaryshares.org, to find the link. So this is why this is important to us now. We've always known that when our children are well, the world is well. We know in particular right now the crisis that is going on in the Ukraine. We know that the plight of women and children in particular is extremely dangerous. Human trafficking numbers are up. That's just one of the topics that we will be talking about how we as Rotarians can continue to leverage our resources around the world to connect. But first we have to have conversation, and we have to continue to educate ourselves and up-level our awareness so we know how to lean in. The other projects, as you see on the screen, that Director Elizabeth Yusevich is going to continue to guide us in, is Alliance for Smiles. We're also going to talk about period poverty, and of course, hand wash, that is very near and dear to our heart and our zones. So please mark your calendar for March 24th from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and feel free to join us. And if you can't, and if you're already busy out doing a project to empower our girls, know that our Zone 34 PI team will also be getting that link out, and it will be recorded so that you can enjoy and also show to your clubs. Just let us know if we can help you. Past District Governor Tina and I are more than welcome to answer any questions after the call.
Great. Thanks, Dawn. Another passionate lady on the call. Thank you for what you're doing. And a shout out to Marshall Butler. Marshall has put the web URLs for both You Are Being Served and Empowering Girls Seminar in the chat box. So please take a note and follow up. So again, thank you, Dawn. This seminar was great. The first one was fabulous, and the next one is going to be even more fabulous. So with that, we now pass to today's topics. And the first one I'm really excited about. This is a joint presentation by past Rotary International Director and my friend and mentor and colleague, Stephanie Urchik, and another great friend, an amazing fellow, past District Governor Tom Gump. Stephanie, as you know, is a past director, a past trustee. She's been active in Rotary all her life. I don't think she really needs any particular introduction to this group. It's always a pleasure to have Stephanie on the call. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk before Stephanie rather than after her. And it's great to have Tom Gump. Tom has been just a wonderful Rotarian. I want to read you a bit about him. He's got a long bio, but I just want to read a little bit. He's passionate about growing Rotary membership through forming new and creative clubs. He has founded or helped found, amongst other clubs, the first ever clubs in the world to serve veterans and end human trafficking. The Rotary Club of Network for Empowering Women, the Kaleidoscope Rotaract Club to serve those with autism, and the Rotaract E-Club for the environment. The first ever cause-based international Rotaract E-Club focusing on the environment. Tom is now forming the Rotary Club of Minnesota Pride. He is one of only 426 Rotarians in the world to be named to the new membership society for new members, new member sponsors. These are people who bring in more than 50 active members into a club. This puts him at the gold level of the society, and that does not include the members he has referred to, other clubs that he has formed. In May, Tom and his wife, Catherine, will serve as President Shaker's representative to District 3860 in the Philippines. It's a pleasure to have Stephanie and Tom with us. They're going to talk about, it's not your grandfather's Rotary Club, or is it? Stephanie, Tom, over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having us. And I always get embarrassed when you do the long introduction, but I really appreciate it. And I've always been a fan of this zone, these two paired zones. They've always been so kind to me. And thank you for having us here today. So what we're going to be talking about is a new workshop that we put together over the last 9 months or so. We've been talking to experts, talking to them about how we can change our clubs and our club's culture. And it's a workshop that we can do in person, we can do online. We'll be presenting it as a 90-minute in-person workshop at the International Convention in Houston. So I'll turn it over to Stephanie.
Well, thanks, Tom. And as Tom said, this workshop or presentation can be done virtually or can be done in person. We launched it this month. We are presenting it at several PETS programs. 2 of them will be virtual, 1 will be in person, and of course, we're doing it in Houston. We don't yet know which day or time, but as soon as we do, we will make that information available to our director, and hopefully that will get posted somewhere so you all can see. So the big question is, why should you attend the session in Houston, or why should you invite us to your club or your district? So Tom, tell us, why should people do this?
Well, that's a very good question, Stephanie. We always have to know our why. And the reason why is because the #1 reason that people leave, and we know this from the international surveys that Rotary conducts, is that they don't feel comfortable in their environment. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, I want to spend a couple of minutes here talking about what is club culture. Well, it's a very powerful force. It really is the unwritten rule book that determines the way we do things around here. Or if you put it another way, it's all the behaviors and the attitudes of your members that reflect your club's values and beliefs as well as theirs. So if things are going smoothly in your club, if you are having growth and diversity, if there is foundation giving, if there's activity in all 5 areas of service, approved grant applications, and so on, your club's culture is a source of strength. If, however, there's been a decline in 1 or more of those areas I just mentioned, the culture may need shifting to realize something different, a change. Change is often met with resistance because it's based in the fear of the unknown. We don't know what it means. Even with the fullest amount of information possible, there are things we can't predict, and that can be scary. Let's do a quick exercise now. I really would just like you to do this. It's called the folded arm exercise. So just do as you see that young lady on the screen. Fold your arms, all right? Now, for some of you, you have your left arm over your right arm. And for some of you, it's the opposite. You have your right over your left. So what I'd like you to do now is just switch it, do the opposite. So Tom, how does that feel when you switched it and did it differently?
Stephanie, it felt very uncomfortable, almost as uncomfortable as that restorative yoga class that Catherine made me go to last night, where the instructor thought that I was Gumby or Super Stretch, and I was really more like SpongeBob SquarePants.
Right. So, even though, holding your arms, crossing your arms, you can do it different ways. And even if you change it, it may result in the same or better outcomes, but there's still always going to be a challenge to implement it. Culture is created intentionally, and so it has to be actively maintained by all club members. The benefit is that your club's culture can give your club a sense of purpose, and it affects all of those areas I mentioned earlier. The better your culture, the greater the potential for your club to positively impact the community, the world, and your members. Think Rotary vision statement here. Together, we see a world where people unite to create lasting change around the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. So we'd like you to join us on this journey as we will facilitate discussions about club culture, why it's important, how you go about assessing your current club status, and determine if it's appropriate. And then, most importantly, how do you apply strategies and concrete actions that will shift this intangible force, also known as culture, so that your club can flourish? So Tom, I'll turn it back over to you now.
So we spent a lot of time thinking about how to give this workshop, and we wanted to do it in a way that doesn't offend anyone and doesn't pick on clubs. So we do it with fun examples, and we put together some really good interactive exercises that'll get people to think about what they're doing. And it's going to answer the million-dollar question, which is, what do you do if you do your assessment and you find out there's an issue? Do you want to change it? Or sometimes, as we say, sometimes it's easier to give birth than to raise the dead. And maybe you want to actually start a satellite club or start a new club, or maybe you want to do both. So Rotary has a great new change model, and Haresh will be familiar with this, and Dr. Berg will be familiar from IA, which it was just introduced. It takes you through the process on how to assess what you need to do, design a plan, build it, implement it, sustain it, and then redo it again. So, it's not an easy thing to change culture, because to change culture, you have to change people. Let's face it, we all know that's not an easy thing to do, but we've been around for 117 years and we have some traditions, and sometimes people might not feel relevant if they're going to be replaced, or newer people, younger people take their spot. We're going to help you deal with all that and answer all those questions. It's going to be fun.
So here's the wind up and the pitch. We really would love for you, if you're planning to be in Houston, we want you to come and join us for the in-person workshop. The in-person workshop will have a lot of exercises and a lot of interaction. If we do it virtually, unfortunately, the number of exercises that we do has to be reduced, simply because the virtual platforms don't lend themselves to that kind of activity. Invite us to facilitate a session at your club or at your district, because your clubs need this workshop. Before I turn it back over to Tom, I just want to share with you why we got this idea. Where did this come from? Well, as Tom said, about 9 months ago, we had both just finished reading a book called The Rotary Club Murder Mystery. This book was written in 1993 by a Rotarian, and we were both appalled at the number of references in this book that talked about behaviors and attitudes that are so outdated. So we decided that it really was time for us to take a look at club culture and see if we could put a spin on it and make club culture a really serious topic. Tom, any closing comments?
We just want to say that we can adapt what you need, and you can tell us what you need and we'll be able to do it. You know, when we started out, we were sure we needed 90 minutes to do what we need to do. But now what we realize is some people only need 45 minutes, some people need an hour, some people need virtual. Whatever you need, we will put the work in to adapt it so that your club or district can benefit from it, or zone.
So thanks again for having us today. And Director Peter and Director-elect Jeremy, we're happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure who might be looking at the chat, but if you have any questions, we're both here to answer them.
Well, thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Tom. We do have a few minutes. So, David, are you able to see if there are any questions or comments, any hands up?
If
on this- on the
anyone
call?
has questions, please share them into the chat pane now, and we will take those questions. We don't have any in the box right now, Director Peter.
I love it when we do such a good job, there are no questions. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thanks, Stephanie, and thanks, Tom, and thanks for taking the time to prepare your thoughts and deliver a very succinct and impactful presentation. And I do urge all of us to join you in Houston for this more detailed presentation. I think it's an important topic, and I think we can learn a lot. And who better to take us to the next step but Tom Gump and Stephanie Urchik. So thank you both very much. Yes, a big round of applause for Tom and Stephanie. Right, now we move on to the next item on our program, which is a presentation on hand wash, to be given by another old friend of mine, Ryan Rowe, who's a former Rotary Peace Fellow. Ryan is the Executive Director of the Haiti National Water Sanitation and Hygiene Initiative, otherwise known as HandWash, which is an inspiring and audacious multi-stakeholder effort to deliver safe, sustainable, and more affordable water and sanitation hygiene for every household in Haiti. His prior professional experiences include advising the governments of Haiti and Malawi on policies for safe drinking water, directing a non-profit in the United Arab Emirates, leading the digital transformation of a philanthropic foundation, and establishing a $630 million Middle East-focused infrastructure investment fund for the Macquarie Group. In addition to his native English language, Ryan speaks French, Spanish, and Portuguese. He has traveled to over 60 countries and has lived in Brazil, Colombia, Haiti, Kenya, Malawi, the Turks and Caicos Islands, and the UAE. He holds a Master of Business Administration from the Schulich School of Business at York University in Canada, and a Master of Public Health from the Gillings School of Global Public Health at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He was a Rotary Peace Fellow in 2010. He's a great guy. Please give a warm welcome to Ryan Rowe.
Thank you so much, Director Peter. It's really, really great to be here to see all of you. So many friendly and familiar faces, lots of new faces too. Peter and I, yeah, we go way back. Met him during my Peace Fellowship experience, which coincidentally was within this zone. I was a Peace Fellow at the University of North Carolina. So that's District 7710. I did see someone from a club in that district here in the call a little bit earlier. So Lee Hudson, great to see you here. I'm going to chat with you a little bit today about the Hand Wash Initiative. So I'm going to share my screen and show you some slides. I know that many of you are familiar with what we're doing. Obviously, this is an initiative that was born and bred in District 7020 within the zone under past RI President Barry Rasson's leadership. And we now count, I think, about 80 different Rotarian volunteers from throughout the zones and other zones and across North America and the Caribbean. Approximately 10 countries now are participating in hand wash in different forms. And that doesn't count the countless numbers of Rotarians, clubs, and districts that have participated by contributing cash or DDF to one of our global grants. I see here, obviously, we have Director-elect Jeremy, DGE Deborah from District 7020, PDG Haresh, PDG Jan from our champion district 6940, Neil Snyder and Sandra Hempstead from our champion district 6960, Marshall Butler, who's been helping us on the web activities of hand wash. It's so nice to be here. Thank you all for joining. So I would like to, just give you a little bit of context. I know you all are probably familiar with the wash challenges in Haiti, but you may not be as familiar with the scope and breadth of Rotary's involvement in trying to address that challenge. And if we look at sort of some of the history of Rotary involvement in water and sanitation in Haiti, just after the earthquake in 2010, that devastating earthquake that devastated the country, we saw that Rotary clubs poured in to provide support in many different areas. Particularly in water and sanitation, we saw that there were, at a minimum, about 40 plus different wash projects that were conducted in the country to the tune of about $4.6 million. You can see from the pins on the map that these clubs were conducted all throughout the country. But there were a couple of things that characterized these projects. One was that there was no coordinated vision for bringing all these projects together. And so each club was operating under its own auspices without really, sharing information between each other. A second aspect was that many of these projects were actually focused more on charitable or humanitarian relief rather than any sort of a long-term sustainable development focus. And a third aspect was that many of these projects did not take into account the needs or the participation of the local Rotary clubs in Haiti. This was a challenge. Haiti being in such a challenging state after the earthquake, the government was not able to provide coordination to the many different actors that were working on the ground. And Rotary realized that it was part of the problem. It was with that context in mind that the initiative of hand wash was born. The idea was to provide support to the government in coordinating all of the different actors working in the water and sanitation space, including providing a vision to how Rotary clubs and districts from around the world could collaborate more closely and more effectively with Rotary clubs in Haiti. So the hand wash initiative is fundamentally an initiative that moves past charity or humanitarian relief and focuses on the idea that development will be more sustainable if it's locally owned and led. And that is the core premise of the hand wash program. We are working on an initiative that has a programmatic focus, which means that it is not time limited or it's not budget limited. It's a philosophy that's embracing a long-term change in the way that water and sanitation is conducted in the country. And we're doing that in partnership with Rotary clubs throughout the country and focusing initially on 7 different counties out of the 144 counties that make up Haiti. You can see on the map here, we're pointing out these 7 different counties where we're currently working. And in those 7 communes, over the last 3 years, we have managed to mobilize with the support of Rotary clubs and districts from around the world, as well as matching grants from the Rotary Foundation, a total amount of $1.6 million in investments. We expect to significantly increase that this year during 2022. And my hope is that by the end of this year, we will be investing close to $3 million US in water and sanitation investments in Haiti in partnership with local Rotary clubs. So this is really a programmatic focus that provides a coordinated vision to the way that we do our work. But what are the values that drive the hand wash program? Well, first, as I mentioned, it's locally led, which means that if a Rotary club and the community in which they're based are not fully engaged in the process, it means that we slow down or we put a pause on the work that we're doing until they are ready to participate in the conversation fully. And that means that we go at their pace. And if it requires for us to, just slow things down or get folks more involved and re-explain the way that the program works, then that's what we do. We will operate at the pace of the community. The second thing is that we look for meaningful opportunities for Rotary clubs and districts, as well as our partners on the ground, to participate in hand wash. As I mentioned, we have 80 Rotarian volunteers, all of them participating in different ways, simply because they're interested to provide service to the hand wash initiative. A third core value is our systematic approach, which means that we're thoughtful about the way we plan and implement and really seek to learn from our mistakes so that we don't repeat them in the future. A fourth core value is this idea of impact. At the core of that is sustainability, not just financial sustainability, but also in terms of the community's buy-in, ownership, and their responsibility to providing for their own needs over the long term. A core element of the idea of sustainability is this notion of pay for service. As I mentioned, in the past, Rotary, working in water and sanitation in Haiti, has been characterized by a charitable approach, which means that the distribution of filters for free to homes in the community without regard to monitoring and evaluation or thinking about behavior change, or even soliciting some sort of a contribution from households to ensure that those products would be valued. What we do is we work with the communities to establish a fair and affordable price for those water and sanitation services. And we help the community to set up a governance structure which allows them to maintain that infrastructure over the long term. And the fifth core value is this idea of commitment. As you all know, polio eradication has been the flagship effort for Rotary for decades, and you have just not given up. And in the same token, the Hand Wash Initiative is committed to seeing this program through, whether it takes us 15 years or 35 years. One of the key tools that we use to engage Rotarians locally, as well as local government officials, is a map of accessibility to clean water and sanitation throughout the country, using a color-coded map that allows folks to visualize where investments are needed. We take that data, and in working with the local Rotary clubs in the country, we're able to bring stakeholders to the table and provide them an opportunity to plan investments and understand how they can contribute to better governance of water and sanitation services on the ground. On the left-hand side of the map, you'll see that there are 22 Rotary clubs and 16 Rotaract clubs, not shown on the map, which together bring about 800 members of the Rotary family together. And so each of those clubs is basically attached to or paired with a commune where we are working, and the Rotary Club becomes a voice and an advocate for water and sanitation in the community. They bring all the different stakeholders together for that conversation, and by creating a space for that dialogue, it promotes accountability as well. Because when you're sitting across the table from a locally elected official, a politician, and he makes a promise, and the following month when you return to the table with that politician and he hasn't delivered on that promise, you can hold him accountable because you're staring him right at the face. And Rotarians are, they're in the community. They're passing these folks in the streets, in the stores, and they can go up to them and they can call them out on promises that have not been delivered upon. That advocacy process at the local level has a number of different steps to it. It really starts with the relationships that Rotarians bring to the table, the influence that they carry. As you know, obviously many Rotarians, especially in Haiti, are engineers, lawyers, doctors. Some of them, in some cases, are actually politicians. And so they can bring folks to the table and have conversations around the way that they can participate in water and sanitation on the ground. In this photo here, you'll see past District Governor Robert Leger shaking hands with the mayor of Cavaillon after they've signed an agreement for the development of water and sanitation investments in the commune. Here is past Director John Smarge meeting with the mayor of the Cavaillon commune, where the mayor is articulating his vision for water and sanitation in the community. He's also been given a Barry Racine presidential tie. In this photo, you see past Assistant Governor Fritz Pierre-Louis from the Club of Léogane meeting with the local water authorities and explaining the hand wash core values, including that key element of pay for service. It requires a sustained conversation over many months sometimes to get folks to realize that they have to participate in the operation and the maintenance of these systems by actually paying for the service so that they can make sure that these facilities can be financed over the long term. Here's a picture of past District Governor Robert Leger meeting with the President of Haiti, talking about the hand wash program in the Southwest and all that we've been able to achieve, and emphasizing that what we need to be able to accelerate this to the national level. Here's an example of a well that has been delivered in the southwestern part of Haiti. On the left-hand side, you'll see the brand new infrastructure surrounded by the Village Water Committee, along with Rotarians and Rotaractors, as well as community members and leaders who are in attendance. And on the right-hand side, you see the community's been gathered for an inauguration of that same well. It's a huge celebration where folks have been waiting for months for these facilities to be built, having participated in numerous trainings, and having given their commitment that they are going to be willing to pay for that service and help make it more sustainable and long-lasting. And this program is one of the ones that we are currently developing a concept for. It's this idea of the brain drain, where folks move from, for example, in Canada, we lose a lot of doctors to the United States, doctors who move south, medical students who are looking for greater economic opportunity in a privatized medical system. In the same way, in Haiti, you see a lot of promising students or engineering graduates who will move north or go across to Europe so they can find better paying jobs. Our goal is to create a model where we can provide opportunities for mentorship and internship for Haitian engineering graduates and students within the country by creating partnerships with engineering firms and universities. So what I was trying to tell you today here is that the Hand Wash Initiative is fundamentally a Rotary inspired and a Rotary led program with very audacious goals. It provides a model for Rotarians to get involved in different ways: fundraising, advocacy, and service. And I think what you'll see here is a lot of parallels with what Rotary has been able to do in polio eradication. And we're using a similar recipe here for water and sanitation. And thank you very much. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Excellent presentation. Very clear. I love the color photos that you provided and the human background. This is a very ambitious program, as you said, with audacious goals, but it's the Zone 33-34 initiative, and we need to support it for the long haul. So thank you for what you're doing. The program's in great heart. My successor, Jeremy Hurst, is the chair of Hand Wash, and he'll be beating the drums from the 1st of July. We don't really have any time for questions. We could do one or two if there's
Director Peter, we do have one that people in the box that people really might be interested in. Ryan,
Okay.
Can you tell us when will be the next global grant that we as clubs and districts can participate in?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks. The next one is our global grant in Cavaillon. It's about $330,000 US. We are hoping to submit it during the month of April. We are actively fundraising for that grant. We have a grant number that your club or your district can assign cash contributions or DDF to. I'll leave my email in the box. Please contact me if your club is interested in participating in that. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, David. All right, moving on. It's now my pleasure to introduce someone else who does not need any introduction. Past Rotary International President Barry Rassin, incoming Chair of the Trustees. Barry, please give us an update on recent trustee developments, including in particular the focus on Ukraine.
Sure, thank you, Peter. And I'll focus more on the Ukraine than others because I think that's what is the highlight, if you will, of what we're in the middle of doing. We did, and tied into Hand Wash, we did approve a grant last month for $490,000 for Hand Wash in a village in Artois in Haiti, and that's moving along well. So we continue with the large grants from the foundation. We've also changed in the manual procedure for the definition for RRFCs and EMGs. What seems like a small change, but we want to move the qualifications of those individuals from expertise to proven performance. So as you think about us moving forward with those positions, it's really important that we get individuals who really know that particular part of the foundation and how it works. And of course, we continue to evaluate our program to scale with eliminating 90% of malaria in Zambia. And that's moving along really well. And we've already begun the process for the next one. But last week, we spent a lot of time on developing a system as to how can we help the citizens of Ukraine. And you remember last year before, we used the disaster response fund to help with COVID projects. And it was extremely successful because we were able to turn around projects really quickly. Within weeks, we were approving grants. I think in 3 or 4 weeks, we'd already done $5 million worth of grants. From there, we continued to progress to 39 million altogether, both global grants and disaster response. So for the Ukraine situation, we are turning again to the disaster response fund. And what we're saying is that from now through June 30, designated Rotary districts that border the Ukraine and the Rotary district in Ukraine may apply for grants of up to $50,000 each from the disaster response fund. Right away, you can see that's the difference. And these grants can be used to provide relief to refugees or other victims of the crisis, including water, food, shelter, medicine, and clothing. And already a number of those kind of grants have been coming in from those areas around the Ukraine. Also, during the same period, other impacted Rotary districts, so those that are close and are getting refugees, not necessarily right on the border, could also apply for grants from the Disaster Response Fund, but up to $25,000 each. Those $50,000 grants, once they're used, those districts can come back and request another grant for $50,000. So trying to be really liberal in making sure we can get them help. From now through the end of April, Rotary districts can transfer unallocated district designated funds to the Disaster Response Fund. So we can also use DDF for the next 2 months to assist with the grants for the Ukrainian situation. So lots of ways that we can get the dollars, lots of ways we can actually improve grants and do what we need to do. All funds needed to receive into the disaster response grant by April 30th. So any donations we want to get in quickly, we're treating it like any other disaster where we have to move quickly, raise the funds quickly, and try to get them help as soon as we possibly can. And we just also made one additional change, and that you can get Paul Harris Fellow credits for donating to the Disaster Response Fund for this particular purpose, which is, again, that's unprecedented that we have done that. So that's working along well. If you're worried about the definition of impacted districts, can get the $25,000 or up to 50. We're talking about Hungary, Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, Czech Republic, and Slovakia, and the Republic of Moldova and Romania. And just to make sure you are aware, we do have clubs in these places. Ukraine, since 2014, has grown from 49 clubs to 62 clubs. So they were doing well. And those Rotarians in Ukraine are working right now to do what they can to begin to look at how they can do projects. They also have 24 Rotaract clubs, and they are also on the ground and working. There is a lot going on. One thing I'm particularly proud of, the Rotaract in Europe, which works with Rotaract Ukraine, have divided Rotaractors into categories, one for refugees, one for finance, one for supplies, and one for information. So the Rotaractors in Europe are developing what they can do to assist in the program. They also have already started the Rotaractors to provide shelter for those who are coming out of the Ukraine. There are a number of countries that are having buses at the border. So when the Ukrainians exit and they have no idea where to go, there's a Rotary bus to take the Rotarians and the Rotaractors to refugee camps or wherever they need to go. So a lot going on. Obviously, we're going to need a significant amount of help. Anything that you or your district could do to assist would be fantastic. This morning, I had a conversation with an Arch Clump Society member, and really just to bring he and his wife up to date on what we're doing through Rotary for the Ukraine, and he immediately donated $50,000 to the disaster fund. So let's keep up those conversations. Let's keep asking, let's keep reminding everybody that we need to do the good work of Rotary. And that's going to be needed for a while to come. So thank you all for your help, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Barry. You know, sometimes we feel that Rotary is like an aircraft carrier. It takes forever to change direction. But every so often, Rotary shines through. And I think on behalf of all of us, we thank you, Barry, and your fellow trustees for rising to the occasion. An enormous amount of work goes into the information that Barry provided. And it's a tribute to those involved that we're able to come up with the responses that we have come up with so quickly. I know that many others on the call are actively involved in district initiatives. I see Stephanie, Barton Goldenberg, and there are probably others as well. So to all of you, thank you for what you're doing. This is Rotary at its best. And for heavens, we really need to help these people. The situation in that part of the world is just truly awful. We don't really have time for any questions unless someone has a burning question. Please reach out to Barry or Stephanie or myself if you have anything that you need to follow up. I will just close out, if there are no particular questions, just by giving you a quick summary of developments at the board level. The board's had several meetings recently. We recently approved the final drafting of an enactment which will create pilot districts in Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific, and in the United Kingdom to implement the governance reforms that the Rotary Shaping Rotary's Future Committee has been working on for some time. This is not to say they'll be adopting the models that that committee has come up with, but this enactment, if approved at the COL, will enable those two zones, zones 8 and zones 20, to begin the process of investigating a new governance structure for the districts in that part of the world. We selected the winners of the 2021-2022 Rotary Alumni Global Service Award and Rotary Alumni Association, and these will be announced at the RI convention. Another reason for you to go to the convention. We've extended Rotary's partnership with Habitat for Humanity International. We've asked the General Secretary to solicit proposals to host the 2030 Rotary International Convention in Chicago. Every 25 years, we go back to Chicago for a convention. We were there in 2005, so it'll soon be 2030. The board elected Greg Podd to be a Rotary Foundation trustee. He's from the California districts, and he will begin his 4-year term on the 1st of July. We considered a number of items adopted at the 2021 Council on Resolutions. I won't go into those at the moment. And we also, we're continuing to work on a new structure in terms of reference for Rotary committees. And these will be announced, I think, probably in April. So they're the meaty objects. A lot of other things were discussed, but they don't rise to the level of necessarily being of any interest to the wider membership. So that brings us to the end of our March Zoomformation call. We're a little over time, but I thank you for staying on. We still have 110 people on the call, which is fantastic. Thank you very much for what you're doing for Rotary. To all of those who've been involved in PETS and other Rotary events, the Rotary Foundation dinners in the pipeline. It's a busy time. And of course, the COL is going to be an extremely busy time for many of us over the next few weeks. We meet again on April the 4th. April is Maternal and Child Healthcare Month. So the focus will be on maternal and child health. April the 4th, please diary that and try and be on the call. I'm sure it'll be a fascinating session.